Have you ever wondered what makes a woman unforgettable? Not the kind people date casually or admire from afar, but the kind they fear losing. It's not about being the most beautiful, the loudest in the room, or playing hard to get. It's something deeper, something magnetic. She knows her value and never chases. She walks into a room with quiet confidence, and suddenly everyone's paying attention. She sets boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect her peace. She grows for herself, not for applause. She's emotionally aware, but never dependent. She's strong enough to walk away when she's not valued, and that's when they realize what they had. But what truly sets her apart, she brings joy, not drama. Her presence feels like a breath of fresh air in a world full of tension. She's fun, real, grounded, and light. She doesn't need to prove her worth because she embodies it. This woman doesn't just enter someone's life, she transforms it. And once you've experienced that kind of energy, you never forget it. In fact, you fear the day it's gone. Let me show you exactly how to become that woman, the one they'll never want to lose. You know what the biggest shift is in becoming the woman people fear losing? It's when you stop chasing. Seriously, let's think about that. How often have you found yourself texting someone just to check in, or wondering why they haven't replied yet, or adjusting your plans again just to accommodate theirs? I get it. We all want to feel wanted. We all crave connection. But there's a massive difference between wanting someone and needing their validation to feel secure. The woman that no one wants to lose doesn't prove her value, she simply embodies it. When you know who you are, when you're rooted in your worth, everything shifts. You stop playing games. You're no longer operating from fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of not being chosen. Instead, you start showing up from a place of confidence, grace, and clarity. You don't chase someone to convince them to stay. You invite them to rise to your level. And if they don't, that's not your loss, it's theirs. People think that attraction is about doing more texts, more compliments, more availability. But the truth is, the most attractive energy in the world is certainty. When you walk into a room like you know exactly what you bring to the table, your kindness, your intelligence, your strength, your joy, you instantly change the way people respond to you. It's like an unspoken language. You don't have to advertise your value. It's in your presence. It's in the way you hold eye contact. It's in the way you say no without guilt. And it's in how you're completely okay if someone doesn't see your worth because you do. Here's the twist most people don't understand. The less you need someone to choose you, the more they want. Why? Because now you're not trying to get love. You're living from a place where love is already part of your life, through your friendships, your purpose, your daily habits, your passions. You've got a full, vibrant, meaningful life, and you're simply seeing if someone is worth sharing it with. That subtle shift in mindset, it changes everything. It's not arrogance. It's not a game. It's alignment. When someone doesn't text back, you don't spiral. You don't start asking what you did wrong. You don't overanalyze the last conversation. You simply say, if this connection is real, it won't require begging. You stop investing in potential and start observing behavior. You look at effort, consistency, and energy. You pay attention to how someone makes you feel, not just what they say. And you're okay with walking away, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your peace to let anyone disturb it. When you know your value, your standards become effortless. You don't have to remind people to treat you well. They feel it the moment they meet you. Because you treat yourself well, you protect your time, you protect your energy, you speak kindly to yourself. You don't shrink to make others comfortable, you don't apologize for your needs, and you definitely don't tolerate crumbs when you know you deserve a feast. Here's what I want you to understand. There's nothing more captivating than a woman who is grounded in who she is. She doesn't beg, she doesn't plead, she doesn't need someone to validate her worth, because her worth isn't up for debate. She's done entertaining situations that leave her confused. She's not addicted to chaos. She values clarity. She values peace. She values connection that feels safe, not just exciting. She's not cold. She's just clear. People will test your boundaries. They'll try to make you doubt your standards. They'll breadcrumb. They'll disappear. They'll come back when it's convenient. But when you know who you are, you don't chase. You observe, you listen to energy more than words. And when something feels off, you trust that feeling. You stop trying to be chosen and you start being selective. Because when you're showing up fully as yourself, when your vibe is self-assured, kind, playful, powerful, grounded, there's no need to run after anyone. People feel your value. And when they get a taste of it, they know exactly what's at stake if they lose it. The most powerful thing you can ever do in dating and relationships is to be someone who can walk away, not out of fear, but from a place of unshakable self-respect. That energy, that's what makes you unforgettable. Because the woman who knows her worth never has to beg to be seen. She simply shines and lets the right person recognize the light. You know, one of the most underrated traits that instantly separates the woman who's unforgettable from everyone else is her ability to set boundaries clearly, calmly, and unapologetically. And let me be clear, when I talk about boundaries, I'm not talking about being cold, closed off, or difficult. I'm talking about standards, the kind that show the world, and more importantly yourself, that you know who you are, what you deserve, and what you're absolutely not going to settle for. Because here's the truth, people don't respect what you say you want. They respect what you insist on through your actions. The woman everyone fears losing isn't the one who tolerates mixed signals, last-minute plans, or emotional breadcrumbs. She's the woman who knows that love without respect is empty. She doesn't need to raise her voice or make demands. Her boundaries speak for her. She's the kind of woman who, when someone starts to cross a line, doesn't get dramatic. She just calmly backs up. She doesn't beg people to understand her worth. She assumes they either see it or they don't. And if they don't, that's okay. Not everyone is meant to sit at her table. That level of self-respect is magnetic and rare. But let's be real. Setting boundaries can be uncomfortable, especially if you've spent a lot of your life people-pleasing, afraid to rock the boat, or thinking that love means saying yes, even when your soul is screaming no. We've all been there. You worry that if you say what you truly feel or ask for what you need, you'll scare someone off. But let me ask you something. If someone walks away because you communicated a boundary, are they really someone you want to build a life with? The woman no one wants to lose doesn't play games. She's not withholding or manipulative. She's just clear. She knows the difference between compromise and self-betrayal. She's willing to bend, but not break. She's open to growth, but not at the cost of her peace. That kind of clarity is powerful because it shows you're not desperate to be liked. You're committed to being respected, and respect starts with what you tolerate. If someone consistently shows up late, dismisses your feelings, or crosses your lines, and you keep letting it slide, you're teaching them that your discomfort is negotiable. But the moment you enforce a boundary, without anger, without drama, just calmly and confidently, you shift the entire dynamic. You send a message, I value myself too much to entertain anything less than mutual effort, care, and consistency. And don't confuse boundaries with ultimatums. A boundary says, this is what I will or won't accept, and I'll take action if that line is crossed. It's not a threat, it's a choice. And it's a reflection of how much you've worked on yourself. When you've done the inner work, when you've healed, When you've built a life that's rich with meaning and joy, you stop tolerating things that don't align with that life. What makes a woman unforgettable isn't just her beauty or charisma, it's her emotional clarity. It's the way she doesn't lose herself in someone else's chaos. It's how she knows when to lean in and when to lovingly pull back. It's how she doesn't make excuses for people's behavior, but instead listens to their patterns. People start to realize they can't take her for granted, not because she's threatening them, but because she carries herself like someone who will never settle for being half-loved. That presence, that energy changes everything. Suddenly, people show up differently. They rise to meet her, or they quietly exit. And either outcome is fine with her. She's not attached to outcomes. She's devoted to alignment. You can tell when a woman has strong boundaries because she's not constantly anxious about where she stands with someone. She's not glued to her phone, overanalyzing every text. She's living her life, loving fully, but always from a place of inner stability. And when someone shows signs that they're not ready for the kind of love she brings to the table, she steps back with grace, not bitterness, because she knows the right person won't just respect her boundaries. They'll love her more for having them. That's what makes her unforgettable. That's what makes her the kind of woman people remember long after she's gone. The one they replay conversations with. The one they realize, too late sometimes, was the real thing. The one who didn't need to beg, chase, or perform. She simply was. And that was enough. Because when you know your worth and protect your peace, you don't just become someone worth keeping. You become someone no one wants to lose. You invest in becoming the best version of yourself, emotionally, intellectually, physically. You're not sitting around waiting to be chosen. You're busy choosing yourself. That mindset makes you unforgettable and irreplaceable. Let's talk about something that completely changes the game in love and in life. Most people are walking around looking for someone to validate them, looking for someone to give them a sense of importance, of worth, of being enough. But here's the truth. The moment your self-worth depends on someone else's attention, you've already lost your power. And power in relationships isn't about control. It's about freedom. It's about being so full within yourself that you don't need someone to complete you. You want someone who complements you. That's a very different energy. When you're addicted to validation, everything you do becomes performative. You're dressing a certain way, not because it feels like you, but because you hope it will make someone notice you. You're texting back quickly, not because you want to, but because you're scared they'll lose interest. You're agreeing with things you don't really believe, staying in situations that drain you, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, just to avoid losing that connection. That's not love, that's fear, and it's exhausting. But when you're addicted to growth, something magical happens. You stop asking, do they like me? And you start asking, do I even like this situation? Is this person aligned with where I'm headed? You stop settling for crumbs of attention and start creating a life where your happiness isn't outsourced, it's insourced. It lives within you every single day in your routines, your passions, your peace. When you commit to growth, you no longer rely on a relationship to give you meaning. You're already living a life of purpose. You wake up with things you care about. Maybe it's your career, your health, your friendships, your spirituality. Whatever it is, you're building something that's yours. So instead of asking, where's my person? You start asking, how can I show up as the best version of myself today? You shift from waiting to becoming. And here's the truth. That woman, the one who is becoming, she is magnetic. Because she's not out here trying to be impressive. She is impressive. Not in a loud, flashy way, but in the way she carries herself, in the way she speaks with intention, in the way she can sit alone and feel peace instead of panic. That's a woman people fear losing, not because she plays games, not because she's cold or distant, but because she knows exactly who she is and where she's going. You see, growth forces you to stop being a passive character in your own story. It makes you the author, the creator, the driver. You take responsibility for your energy, your choices, your time. And that scares people who thought you would always make them the center of your world, because now you are the center of your world. And when you make that shift, you naturally attract people who are also growing, also evolving, because they can see that you're not just someone to date, you're someone to build with. People often ask, how do I become the kind of woman he doesn't want to lose? The answer isn't to become more agreeable, more available, more likable. It's to become more you, more aligned, more fulfilled. To become someone so deeply engaged in her own growth that anyone who joins your life has to rise to meet you. You stop being afraid of outgrowing people because you realize your life isn't supposed to shrink to make others comfortable. It's supposed to expand. And the right people, they'll grow with you. The wrong ones, they'll fall away, and you'll be okay with that because your peace won't depend on their presence. The truth is, growth changes your standards. It makes you realize you're not here to chase. You're here to attract. You're not here to beg. You're here to choose. But when you operate from that place, you stop trying to convince people to stay. You know that anyone who's meant for you will feel lucky to be in your life. They'll feel inspired by you, not entitled to you. And that's when they fear losing you, not because you've manipulated them, but because they've seen something rare. A woman who doesn't just talk about self-love, but lives it. A woman who's not desperate to be saved because she's already done the saving herself. And that kind of woman, she's not fantasy. She's real. She's grounded. And she's someone people don't want to lose because she's already whole, with or without them. Because when you fall in love with your own growth, you become the person no one wants to risk letting go. You're emotionally attuned, but never emotionally dependent. That's the difference that separates women who are casually appreciated from the women men fear losing. Because look, emotional intelligence is sexy. It's attractive. When you can understand what someone's feeling, respond with empathy, and hold space for their emotions, you become that rare kind of person who makes others feel seen. That's powerful. But here's the twist. Being emotionally attuned doesn't mean you abandon yourself to someone else's chaos. It doesn't mean you sacrifice your stability for the sake of being understood or needed. It's not about becoming their emotional crutch. It's about being grounded and present. The women men fear losing are those who know how to meet someone emotionally while still standing firmly in their own sense of self. A lot of people confuse emotional connection with emotional dependency. They think being close means being consumed. They get so wrapped up in the highs and lows of someone else's mood that they lose themselves in the process. But the truth is, when you're emotionally dependent, you start to make someone else's happiness your job. And that's a recipe for exhaustion and resentment. The moment your sense of worth becomes tied to how much someone needs you, you start walking a dangerous path. Because now, every argument feels like a threat to your identity. Every disagreement feels like abandonment. And every time they pull away, you chase, because their closeness is the only thing keeping you stable. That's not love. That's fear. Real connection, the kind that creates deep, lasting bonds, comes from two emotionally sovereign people who choose each other, not need each other. You don't want to be someone's emotional life raft. You want to be their partner, their teammate, someone who can show up for them without disappearing in the process. When you're emotionally attuned but not dependent, you create a calm presence in someone's life. You're not overreacting to every bump in the road. You're not constantly questioning their every move or reading into every silence. You know who you are. You know your heart is open, your intentions are clear, and your life is full even without them. That energy is incredibly attractive because it shows confidence, security, and maturity. You're someone who brings peace, not pressure. And here's something else that matters. Emotional attunement means you can feel deeply without bleeding all over someone. You're not dumping your emotions carelessly, expecting them to fix you or validate you. You're aware of your own emotional world. You've explored it, processed it, owned it. And so you come into relationships not looking to be saved, but looking to connect. That right there is rare because so many people enter relationships hoping the other person will fix their insecurities or fill a void or silence the self-doubt they've been living with. But that's not your story. You've done the work. You know how to hold your own heart. And when someone meets you, they feel that. They feel the difference between someone who's there to genuinely connect and someone who's there to fill a hole. And it changes the way they treat you. When you're emotionally stable, it gives the other person space to open up without fear of being smothered. They feel safer being vulnerable with you because they're not worried that one moment of emotional distance will cause you to spiral. That's the emotional safety you offer. Not because you're emotionally shut off, but because you're balanced. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean you're cold or distant. Quite the opposite. You're warm, you're loving, and you care deeply, but you care from a place of strength, not scarcity. You don't cling, you don't beg for reassurance every 5 minutes, and you're not afraid to be alone because you've already built a life that's meaningful and rich, with or without someone else in it. And when a man sees that, when he sees that your love is a gift, not a lifeline, it changes how he sees you. He realizes you're not replaceable. You're not just another woman trying to get his attention. You're someone who brings emotional clarity, someone who can love powerfully and walk away peacefully if needed. That's where your power lies, because you're not afraid to be vulnerable, but you're also not afraid to protect your peace. You can hold his heart, but you're not afraid to let go if it stops being healthy. That makes him step up. That makes him respect you. That makes him realize, if I lose her, I'm not just losing someone who loves me, I'm losing someone who knows how to love and how to love herself. And that right there is the kind of woman he'll fight to keep. The most powerful move you'll ever make is walking away from someone who doesn't see your worth. I know that sounds bold, maybe even a little scary, but let's talk about what that really means. Walking away isn't about being cold or playing games. It's not about punishing someone. It's about honoring yourself in a world that often tells women to stay, to wait, to be patient, to fix it, to try harder. But what if you've already tried? What if you've given your love, your time, your vulnerability, your energy, and it's still not enough for them to show up for you in the way you deserve? That's the moment, that's the crossroads where you have to ask, am I staying out of love or out of fear? See, a lot of people stay in relationships not because they're happy, but because they're scared of what leaving says about them. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe if I give it just a little more time, they'll change. But the truth is, the longer you try to convince someone to value you, the further you move away from valuing yourself. Let me be crystal clear. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means you loved you more. It means you recognize that staying in something one-sided isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment. And you've worked too hard, grown too much, and healed too far to go back to betraying yourself. And here's the wild part. When you have the courage to walk away from someone who took you for granted, it often changes how they see you, because you're not doing what every other person did. You're not waiting in the wings, hoping they wake up. You're not explaining your worth like a salesperson pitching a product. You're leaving quietly, decisively. That's power. You see, when someone knows you're willing to leave the table if respect isn't being served, they either level up or they get left behind. And honestly, You don't need the person who only realizes your value when they feel your absence. You need the one who saw it from the start and treated it like the gift it is. But walking away isn't just about relationships, it's a mindset. It's about walking away from anything that diminishes your light. That includes friendships, where you're always the giver, jobs where you're undervalued, situations where your energy is being drained instead of nurtured. It's about refusing to settle in any area of your life. Because here's what happens when you walk away with grace and certainty. You send a message, not just to them, but to yourself. You remind yourself what you're worth. And every time you make a decision aligned with that worth, your confidence grows, your peace grows, your standards grow. Let's be honest, some people will only treat you right when they're scared to lose you. And that's not the kind of love you want. You don't want to be kept in someone's life because they fear the silence without you. You want to be chosen every single day, not out of fear, but out of deep admiration and commitment. And I want you to remember this. Leaving isn't the hard part. Staying when you know you deserve better, that's the real burden. That's what weighs on your chest at night. That's what makes you second guess your joy. That's what chips away at your self-esteem until one day you don't even recognize the confident, vibrant woman you used to be. So, don't wait until you're completely broken to walk away. You don't need a dramatic ending. You just need clarity. You just need a moment of stillness, of brutal honesty, where you ask yourself, is this relationship feeding me or draining me? And if it's draining you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you owe it to yourself to choose peace. Because when you walk away from what isn't right, you create space for what is. You stop trying to fit into someone else's story and start writing your own. You stop shrinking to be accepted and start expanding into the woman you are always meant to be. And here's the magic. The moment you start honoring yourself like this, consistently, unapologetically, you become the woman no one wants to lose. Not because you made them chase you, not because you played it cool, but because your energy is grounded in truth, because you loved yourself enough to leave what wasn't loving you back. That kind of strength is rare. That kind of self-respect is unforgettable. That kind of woman, she doesn't just attract love, she inspires it. And that's the kind of woman you were born to be. You bring joy, not drama. This is one of the most underestimated traits that make a woman unforgettable. And not just unforgettable, irreplaceable. See, when we talk about becoming the kind of woman someone fears losing, we often jump to extremes, looking a certain way, being perfect, always being in control. But let me tell you something powerful. What truly sets you apart is your energy. People remember how they feel around you. Not what you wore, not what you said, but how you made them feel in your presence. And when someone feels like life is lighter, more peaceful, more fun, they're around you, that's when they start to realize, I don't ever want to lose this. Now, let's be clear. Bringing joy doesn't mean you're always smiling, always positive, or some kind of sunshine robot who never has a bad day. No. It means you've mastered the art of emotional maturity. You know how to sit with your emotions without throwing them at people. You don't need to manufacture drama to feel important. You don't seek attention by creating chaos. You've learned how to express yourself without exploding. That's what makes your presence feel like calm in a storm. Joy isn't just about being nice or agreeable either. It's about having a grounded, steady vibe that makes people feel safe and inspired when they're around you. You have a playful side, yes, but you also have depth. You can be silly and spontaneous, and 5 minutes later, you're having a real vulnerable conversation that leaves someone thinking about you all night. That range is rare, and people crave it more than they admit. The truth is, most people are used to relationships that feel like emotional whiplash, One moment, everything's fine. The next, there's a meltdown. So when someone meets a woman who brings joy without volatility, who's emotionally generous but doesn't overextend, who's available but not needy, they feel something they probably didn't even know they were missing: peace and excitement at the same time. Now, I want you to hear this carefully. Joy doesn't mean being a people pleaser. It's not about shrinking yourself to keep the peace or walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. That's not joy. That's fear. And it's exhausting. True joy comes from being centered in who you are, from knowing you're enough, with or without someone else's validation. And because you're not constantly trying to win anyone over, you can relax into your authenticity. That's what allows your joy to shine. It's effortless because it's real. Think about it like this. When you know your value and you're not depending on anyone to make you feel worthy, you actually become someone who gives freely, not because you want something in return, but because you're full enough to overflow. You give compliments that aren't strategic. You celebrate others without comparison. You show up with presence because you're not preoccupied with impressing anyone. And when a man experiences this kind of woman, the one who laughs easily, who doesn't take herself too seriously, who knows how to lighten a moment but also deepen it when needed, she's not just attractive, she's irresistible. He finds himself thinking, how is it this good just to be around her? That's when the fear of losing you kicks in, because suddenly you're not just someone he likes, you're someone who makes his life better. And that kind of woman, that's the one he doesn't want to imagine a life without. I've seen it happen over and over. The woman who doesn't force anything, who brings joy without sacrificing her standards, is the one who gets pursued. Not because she plays games, not because she's cold and detached, but because she's a source of peace and passion. She's the kind of woman who makes him want to rise, to protect, to commit, to show up, not because she demanded it, but because he can't bear the thought of losing her light. And the most beautiful part, you don't bring that joy for someone else. You bring it because it's who you choose to be, because you've made peace with your past, because you're building a life you're proud of, because you've learned how to generate your own happiness. And when someone joins you in that, it's a privilege, not a necessity. So be that woman, the one who owns her joy, the one who knows her peace is powerful, the one who doesn't need drama to feel alive because she's already lit up from within. That's the woman everyone fears losing.